I'm Reverend Phil, and I'm your host for Words of the Prophets. Where are our prophets now? Where are those messages God chooses to communicate divine revelation through? In the past, the Creator has sent prophets like Abraham, Siddhartha, Jesus, Muhammad, and many more. Maybe our higher power has switched tactics since we reinterpret God's words as soon as the Creator's prophets leave us. Could it be that Spirit talks to each one of us individually and we haven't learned to listen? On Words of the Prophets, our modern prophets show us how to find the internal prophet that is the I Am, and we discuss the application of spiritual principles in all aspects of our lives. Reverend Light, everybody. I'm Reverend Phil, and I'm your host for Words of the Prophets. Today my guest is Dr. David Ruther, who is a doctor of Oriental Medicine. Welcome.
Thanks. Glad to be here, Phil.
We're glad to have you, and we're going to tell you why we're glad to have you in a little while. Today's prophetic topic is bolstering their own internal healing. Our topic can be found in the book titled Timeless Healing on page 234. Timeless Healing was written by Dr. Herbert Benson. Dr. Benson is the founder and president of the Benson Henry Institute for Mind-Body Medicine at the Massachusetts General Hospital, which is the original and largest teaching hospital of the Harvard Medical School. I mean, I throw this in because I want to really credentialize this guy because he had the right idea and he's not some kind of quack that's out there, but I mean, heavy duty, and that's why we read that. So the statement containing our topic reads as follows. I dispute the wisdom of turning from one set of drugs and procedures to another set of drugs and procedures. The most natural form of healing is that which the patient does for him or herself. Too often it seems that patients are switching their loyalties and their reliance from one set of solutions to another, each of them inadequate in their own way, instead of bolstering their own internal healing. And that's what we're going to talk about today. What is Oriental Medicine? How do we work on bolstering our own healing? And how do we work on basically, what would you say, preventing our getting ill? Would that work right?
Yeah, preventing, and we should talk a little bit about reducing the pathogenic as well. Preventing, and then actually there's treatment, which is a little bit different.
Before we even get into that, why don't you tell the people how you came to be what you're doing and how you came to be who you are?
Thanks, Phil. My path since 1984 has mostly been around meditation. And I started at the Naropa Institute in Boulder, in their fine arts program, and meditation was part of that. And so that was Tibetan meditation, shamatha, mindfulness training, and I continue with that, through today. And it's been a big part of healing, big part of my healing practice, my own healing, and sharing that with others. I got started with a lot of other forms there, Tai Chi, Qigong, other martial arts, yoga, still practice a lot of that. And those are other things that are part of the prevention and healing that I work with.
How did you become a doctor? What attracted you to this form of medicine?
It seemed to be just an innate healing that I was looking for. Some way to deepen my healing, strengthen my body and mind, balance, and meditation and Tai Chi seemed to, and then I had a Tai Chi teacher who was an acupuncturist, and that really got me into the path of medicine.
How so?
I got some acupuncture treatments, and was doing a lot of Qigong and a lot of meditation. And that was mostly Taoist meditation and Qigong. There's other forms I've gotten into that are more medical that they use in the hospitals in China. And I got some treatments early on and really felt it was, opening my energy, opening my mind, balancing, calming. I used to ride my bike around Boulder, and after I got treatments, I noticed that I just felt better riding.
You had spent some time actually in the Far East studying.
Yes. And
That must have been pretty interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
these are the original, you learn from the source, so to speak.
Oh, definitely. I've been to China 3 times. I've studied in hospitals. About 6 months I spent there each trip. Different places, Shanghai, Beijing, Chengdu. Those are the main hospitals I studied at, main TCM hospitals.
This goes back, I mean, this type of healing is ancient.
Right.
It was what was it, about a week ago? There's a series documentary going on Documentary Channel it's called The Pyramid Code. And the only reason I'm jumping to that was one of the commentators, one of the talking heads, made a comment that we look at ancient civilizations and see them as non-technical and therefore disregard what they have achieved. And that sounds exactly like what the West does with Oriental medicine.
There's a bit of that. I think that there is a difference between, say, folk medicine and folk ways of healing, and then more developed theory, differential diagnosis, where you're not, in a folk medicine, is basically, you have this symptom, take this, try this. In a more systematic medicine, we're trying to find maybe the underlying cause, pattern, is it coming from your liver dysfunction, is it coming from a mental dysfunction? Can you see the difference there?
But can't you also combine them? I mean, wouldn't you not take something to alleviate a symptom like an herb and then at the same time start working on dealing with the cause?
Well, what you run into is that the herb will work for some of those conditions, like say a headache. And there's lots of different causes for a headache. So you have an herb that treats headache, and it works for some people. But it doesn't work for everybody because people have different causes of their illness, of their headache. And so say this herb regulates circulation in various organs or parts of the body that then help the headache. Well, someone else has a dysfunction in another part of the body, so it doesn't work for them.
But then it would be another herb in theory.
You would have to find more detailed information about where that symptom was coming from.
So you would do a basic diagnosis, so to speak, and then you would treat whatever you found. But let's back this whole thing up.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand the distinctions you're talking about. What are the origins? How far back does this go? I mean,
it goes a long way back. It probably dates back to some of our innate mechanisms of healing, and certainly Qigong and massage, date back a very long time. And for example, when we're cold, we do things like hug our body or try to grasp ourselves to kind of stay warm. And these kinds of things got taken into Qigong and then got developed and elaborated on, these innate postures, mechanisms of healing.
How did they come up? I mean, things we're going to get into, like paths of energy, life force. How did they come to that?
Well, it started with observation, maybe something as simple as observing that when the sun comes out, plants grow, and so they notice the sun has a certain effect, and they notice, breathing has a certain effect. When we breathe in different ways, we feel differently. When we want to cool ourselves, we breathe different than when we want to warm ourselves. And so people started to notice these effects and say when we press on a certain place in the body, we get certain effects. And then there became more and more observation of these effects, and it became documented when language was developed about 6,000 years ago. But who knows how long it was going on before then.
So what you're saying basically is it's almost like a trial and error. We push this and see what happens.
Yeah, for a
and
long time.
then we document what we find, and we build a body of knowledge and understanding.
Definitely. Yeah.
And so this has been going on, you said 6,000 years easy.
Easily, yeah.
And
Obviously a lot longer.
how much of it is growing now? I mean, in changing, what understandings are influencing the practice and the body of knowledge?
Testing is a big, scientific research, testing, chemistry, all that is having a huge impact on all levels of medicine, natural. A lot of research gets done on herbs, a lot of research gets done on the brain, a lot of research gets done on emotions, and we're probably, we're obviously gathering data at a huge rate now, much faster than any time in history.
And I would assume most of this data is reinforcing the understandings but adding to them at the same time.
Definitely adding more understanding, more applications for herbs that maybe were not so well known. New things, say, this herb maybe has an antiviral property, a strong antioxidant property, or this part of the brain has a strong influence on these behaviors or these states of mind.
We're talking about Oriental medicine. So the concept of Oriental is not limited to just China, for instance. So,
Right.
So I mean, there must be a variety of different types of Oriental medicine or
Huge.
different applications, and
Huge
just
variety.
like religion grows
Right.
independently, so does the... Can
Yeah.
you talk about that a little bit?
Research definitely has been, expanding applications. There are certainly, when I was over in China, a lot of different ways people are applying medicine. A lot of different. It has a lot to do with the application and understanding of points and things like that. But China was a very diverse population, a very diverse continent. They had isolated pockets that were separated geographically from each other, and little places developed, their own little systems that could be very different from what was growing and being developed somewhere 100 miles away. And you see that with the art as well. Each little location kind of developed its own specialty of art and philosophy and healing, of Tai Chi, of acupuncture, of meditation.
So the more as our society grows in communication, the more we start to connect these little pockets and get a bigger
Yeah.
base of knowledge.
Yes, and there was a huge variety of philosophies of Chinese medicine that got systematized in the 1940s during the Cultural Revolution. And then they basically sort of streamlined 10 different kinds of Chinese medicine. And that included a disease diagnosis style, which treated just based on the disease, like some modern disease understanding, like hepatitis, where you have parasites. And so you treat just based on that, rather than diagnosing, say, the pathogenic influences, the climacteric influences, and all other kinds of 5-phase theory and other kinds of Chinese medicine.
How about other places in the Orient, India, Tibet? I mean, do they all have their own offshoots of this, or their own brands of healing understandings?
Yes, they do, and they obviously sort of mix to some extent. There was, what's known as Ayurvedic medicine in India, and in Tibet you have pretty isolated styles of Tibetan medicine as well that are totally unique and very different from other kinds of Chinese medicine.
But just as effective.
Definitely just as effective.
So what does that say about... I mean, let's go back to our original topic here, bolstering their own internal healing.
Yeah.
There's multiple approaches. How much of it is the approach how much of it is just believing in it? Because that's what Dr. Benson was really about a lot.
Believing.
He didn't like that concept of placebo. He called it remembered wellness, that we bring our body back to a state that it remembers when it was well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in a lot of ways, what we're talking about to me sounds like various religious practices. They're all getting you to the same place, but they're coming from different paths, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. Remembering your own healing or wellness, to me, speaks of a spiritual state, which in the Orient they would call like the Buddha awareness, or Buddha fields, or enlightenment, or something like that. You remember your own wholeness, and there's a lot of insight around that.
You're talking about Buddha. We had the discussion. We were talking about the 4 stages, and how, and it seems like they more influenced Buddha than Buddha influenced them. That he took his 4 noble truths based upon those 4 stages.
Possibly, I would call it more of a, 4 steps in the methodology of treating an illness. It's more of a methodology than stages. Okay,
you want to talk about them?
Sure. Let me just refer back how we wrote it here. Oh yeah. We can say the first step is noticing that there is an imbalance. A disease is occurring. And then the second step is identifying the cause, or diagnosis. And the third step is identifying the solution for the disease, or that there is a cure. And then we have the application of the cure, how we might apply it.
So when you get trained to be the doctor that you are, you don't get trained in just one stage. You go through all the 4 stages. You have to. Right. It's not like we have a specialist who just, does a diagnosis. Another person does the application. Like, I'll tell you, go stick these needles here, and somebody else goes sticks the needles.
It does get practice that way.
It does.
Yeah, a lot of places. And also, you might get an herbal prescription from a doctor and go get it filled somewhere else, and then it's up to you to take the tea, to maybe prepare it in some way.
So there is, and has there always been compartmentalization, or is that just something that's coming with modern culture, so to speak?
I'm not sure too much if practitioners, doctors in the past dispensed herbs or did acupuncture, or if maybe an apprentice did the acupuncture treatment.
Interesting. Because, it almost sounds, for me, one of the problems I have with Western medicine is that. Fortunately, I haven't had many health problems, so I don't run into it a lot. But I have, in the work I do, clients who have to keep bouncing from doctor to doctor because they can't get a diagnosis. I only diagnose this. This one, I only diagnose this. And
well, it's less compartmentalized in that way in Chinese medicine, because we're dealing with, body and many aspects of the body. We're dealing with mind, many aspects of the mind. We're dealing with spirit and many aspects of spirits, and emotion. Chinese doctors are also treating emotional disorders. So
we're dealing with the body as a whole.
We're dealing with the body as a whole, definitely.
Let's bounce for a second. My understanding of the process is that there is I think the term is meridians. There are 5 basic energy paths within the body.
It depends how you group them together. There's, 12 distinct meridians.
Okay.
But they can be grouped in various ways.
And each one of them is a system that's independent but also connected to all the other systems.
Oh yeah, they're all connected. In fact, the energy runs from one to another in several different systems. What you would be talking about is what we call Jing-Lo theory, and that's a lot of Japanese acupuncture is a lot of Jing-Lo, acupuncture. And it basically means meridians and collaterals. Collaterals are the interconnecting meridians. You have the main meridians, you have interconnecting meridians, and you have sort of large reservoir meridians called the 8 extra meridians that also sort of like balance on a large level the flow of qi and the other meridians.
Let's talk about qi, the flow of qi. I mean, define qi, define the flow. I mean, can you give some depth to that to people watching?
Well, like as we started to say earlier, the sun has a certain kind of qi. Our bodies have many kinds of qi. Each organ has its own qi. The air has qi. Water has qi. Everything has its own kind of qi. And
can you distinguish between them?
Oh yeah, well you can distinguish between, say, air qi and water qi, and they're similar in that they're all made up of different combinations of the basic elements. You could talk about the periodic table, or you could talk about older ideas about the elements, but and there's ancestral qi in the body. The ancestral tree is basically that which gets passed on genetically, and the adrenals and the sex organs. That's in the ancestral qi, and then there's the liver and that mostly stores yin and blood and jing, and and then there's the zong qi, the central qi, the qi in the body, the upright qi. And so there's a lot of different ways to describe the qi in the body. There's some systems describe the qi as ascending and descending, entering and exiting, opening and closing, and dispersing and gathering. So those are different kinds of qi movements.
You know what? Let's try to put this into a more basic application and theoretical.
That'd be good.
I know Dave for, I don't know, we know each other for what, about 8-10 years now?
Something like that.
We had collaborated on a couple of clients, where I'd watched you work, and up until recently had no need of your services. Then I had a problem with my lower back that my chiropractor alone was not capable of relieving, and I came to you, and you did an incredible job. And
thank you.
And it was, and I loved the way it was approached. But let's talk about how you worked with me in the context of what you were just talking about. What did you? I came into you first, and I gave you a basic symptom. I gave you a diagnosis or something that my chiropractor gave me.
Symptomatic. You gave me like the subjective information.
Okay.
And we combine that with objective information. What I can objectively find in your body through different palpation of the pulse, palpation of points, palpation of muscles. I check range of motion, check your ranges of motion in your back, your different muscles in your back, and see what seems out of balance.
And what did you find?
You had a little impingement going on in a couple of the vertebrae, where the vertebrae are compressed, tight, muscles are tight, and compressing where the nerves come out, called the facets. The facet impingement. But that's a little bit outside the range of most Chinese medicine. That's more of Western applications.
Yet, you treated me. And one of the things I noticed, and I commented to you when you were doing it each time, was in the acupuncture, you kept putting the needles in different places. What guided that?
Pressing on points, trying different things. There's a huge variety of ways to treat. You can treat based on the time of day. You can use different points.
Can you elaborate on that?
I learned from a Taiwanese doctor, which I particularly like, the Taiwanese now. They're sort of the melting pot of Japan, Korean, Chinese, Indian, all those places have seemed to coalesce in Taiwan, and the herbal knowledge and things like that. But one of the ideas is, the qi in the morning starts off at the fingertips and moves into the body. So I sometimes use in the morning or early in the day, I'll use points on the extremities and use points closer, more proximal to the body, maybe around the elbows.
Let's elaborate on that for a second. You say it starts at are you saying it enters the body from the fingers as its starting point?
There's the idea, they call these the Jingwell points, and then you have these 5 phases of points that continue between the very extremities and say this middle joint in the body, and there's 5 phases where the qi comes from this well, and then the source, and then there's the stream points, and then there's the sea points where the qi is gathered deepest in the body.
So that's fascinating. I came to you at the same time pretty much every day, but the treatments were a little bit different. So then that wasn't a factor, but you were reading what was going on in my body then.
Yeah, I'd read at different times, different ways. There's so many ways to treat, and different theories you can use. And I probably find different problems that you were having. Things kind of shift around. This part relaxes a little bit. This part gets a little tighter. The energy is moving better here, not so good there. Things like that.
And you were treating my lower back, my hip area. You were putting needles in my arms, my ears, my nose. Can you explain that whole? Because it worked, and I've had it done before, and it's worked. But it's fascinating, and I'm trying to just explain to the audience how this whole understanding this process is applied.
A lot of the acupuncture theory is like reflexology, where you have parts of the body that can influence other parts of the body, or the mind, or emotions. And so you can treat this reflex system in lots of different ways. There's lots of ways to access, say, the qi of the low back. There's lots of things that influence the low back. Can be stress, can be tight muscles. And so depending on what we find, we can treat points that address that imbalance.
So basically, I'm having a problem with my back, and you were putting some needles in my legs, my calf. Then there's a constriction of the energy flow that has to be opened up with that needle.
Right.
Is that an accurate statement?
Definitely.
Does the needle open the flow or stimulate the flow, or both?
It does both. Traditionally in Chinese medicine today, they would say quickens the qi. It just invigorates the circulation. You can find documentation and research that shows how acupuncture can dilate blood vessels, promote relaxation, and that then gets better nutrient flow. You can get rid of inflammation, toxins, pathogens in the body, things that might be stuck in the muscles. Prostaglandins, those are subsets of hormones that all the tissues have. Neurotransmitters can get stuck in the muscles, keep them irritated. And you can, by flushing the muscles with nutrients, you start to get rid of some of these pathogens in there.
So you're talking, let me just do this. Okay. Then what I'm hearing is the energy flows through the body in a way that's the way you're describing it. Also sounds like what the blood is doing at the same time.
Oh, they're intimately connected, yes.
But they're separate.
Yeah, they're different elements of the body.
Fascinating.
But you would find the movement of blood influence the movement of chi. If the blood's not moving very well, the chi is not going to be moving very well. So they're connected. The mind and body, the mind influences the body influences the mind. The emotions influence both. They're all interrelated.
Elaborate on that a bit. When you say the influences, I mean, so emotionally, if I have an emotional reaction, I'm in some form or another creating stress. And I'm constricting, and I'm also putting in chemicals that I don't necessarily need within my system.
Right. That would be a stress response. But there's other kinds of ways you can influence your body. Or say if you have, say, something like depression, melancholy, that's going to influence your body in other ways. And it might affect different people differently. That's probably the biggest thing. Some people get depression with certain symptoms, and it affects their digestion. Other people can get depressed, and it affects their sleep, their nervous system, things like that.
Let's bounce around here for a second.
Happy to.
We've been talking a lot about the symptoms, and we're talking about also how the energy flows. How does individual practice, spiritual practice, tie in with all this?
That I think you stated in Dr. Benson's book, I think, is a fabulous book, and it also really describes the interrelationship of mind and body. Do you want to say a little bit more specifically?
Well, I guess the question is, we're talking mind and body. Where does Oriental medicine see spirit? In one, the other, both?
It kind of depends how far back you look and what systems you get into, and some systems would say there's a spirit in each organ has its own spirit. I think spirit goes back to remembered wellness. I think that's a great description of how spiritual states can influence our body, mind, heart, and regain that openness, and can free up so much of our bodies and minds and hearts. Circulation and the way we relate to ourselves and the way we relate to others. Spirit, I think, is a huge source of that wellness, that we can tap into.
How do we connect, or is there a connection between the concept of spirit and the concept of life force, the chi?
Chi, I think, in Chinese medicine is described differently, but certainly spirit, or that wellness state, or that state of awakened mind or awakened awareness, can really influence the movement of the chi in our body. Definitely, it can be very uplifting. It can take us out of depressive states or other kinds of states.
So specifically, you were talking early on that your first introductions were through Tai Chi and yoga and meditation. So are those, obviously they're practices that have an influence on the body and how the body reacts.
Yes.
Would that be a fair statement?
Oh, definitely.
So
and
then
there's lots of research on that, as you know, in Dr. Benson's book, and there's lots of studies on what we are calling mindfulness, and there's all kinds of research on these There's the Stress Reduction Mindfulness Research Institute, or I'm forgetting the exact name of that, but there's tons of places that have done research on how mind states affect our bodies, hormones, immune system, circulation, the way we absorb nutrition, the way we deal with stress, the way we deal with brain activity, and open-mindedness, and generosity, and the way we relate to others. Now, these are all profoundly affected by meditation, relaxation, remembering wellness, those kinds of things. I try to share that as much as possible with my patients.
Talking about the life force, the chi.
Okay.
And you talked about it entering, like the fingertips in the morning.
Right.
How does that tie into, I know that there are a lot of meditative and yoga practices which deal with what we call chakras, where it's about raising the energy up the spine, for instance. Is that the same?
It could be a similar movement. I think the movement from, say, the fingertips, that's one of the Chinese medical theories, and it could be interpreted in different ways. The qi might always be sort of circulating through the body, from the fingertips, or here it has a different quality than it does here. It has a different quality of qi.
Is qi at all now in this technological age we live in measurable?
You can certainly measure all kinds of qi, like the sunlight. You could say heat is a kind of qi. Relative to cold has a certain kind of qi. Cold is constricting, heat is expanding.
And how about within the body? You're talking about the difference between the fingertips and, let's say, the elbow. Can we measure that, or is that just something that we've accepted as a hand-down from thousands of years ago?
They've been measuring it in various ways. The most common way is they measure the conductivity of the skin. There's lots of different ideas on what kinds of information you can get through testing the skin's conductivity at these different points.
Conducting blood, energy, heat, what are we measuring?
It's some kind of energy, it's some kind of measured, probably in the microamp range.
Interesting. So let's just bounce around here for. This is such a fascinating. I want to touch so many places, and we're not going to have enough time to do that. But so part of the Oriental medicine concept, at least in some schools, is the yin and the yang.
Oh yeah, that's a big part of Chinese medicine.
Can you describe that and explain how that operates, how you utilize it?
There's a lot of different ways. We could talk about excess and deficiency, excess yang, too much energy, too much heat in certain channels. Can be, say, like an excess stomach. Excess yang in the stomach is often, say, like a reflux or GERD or something like that, and it could develop into an ulcer. Those are signs of too much pathogenic yang energy in the stomach. We could have depletion, not enough yin. Not enough yin is not enough fluids, not enough of the body essences, hormones, could be other kinds of things. That's basically all the bodies have their yin and yang. The stomach has its yin. Not enough fluids in the stomach, we're going to run into too much yang problems. You always have yang excess, yang deficiency, which is characterized by cold, and you have yin excess and yin deficiency. So this is getting maybe technical, but
but there's there are balance that we strive to get back to by altering the energy flow.
Right.
That's
altering the energy flow and the balance of these healthful properties and pathogenic properties. And there's the the healthful, nurturing substances, the wholesome substances. Even one kind of chi is called the righteous chi, that keeps us upright, and it's part of the digestive chi. And then there's pathogenic chi, or they even called some of it evil chi.
My understanding of, and again, there's probably so many different schools to this, so we may not be talking the same school, but that the female is the fear energy and the male is the anger energy.
I don't know if I would bring that kind of gender association to it. Yeah.
Are they measurable? I mean, are these energies emotional responses also yin and yang?
They can be described in terms of yin and yang. Definitely the anger is usually thought to be of a more yang, but sometimes, as Freud pointed out, it often gets directed inwards and it starts to contract, which is more yin. It can be a strong inward contraction. And this brings on all kinds of other contracted mental states. And, going back to, say, Buddhism, we have clinging, and this clinging becomes very intense. And they say, clinging to I, me, or mine. And we start to identify everything totally personally as, our own pathology.
So do you wind up working as a therapist with some of your patients?
I wouldn't say I counsel them. I try to give them information that can help them. Certainly, I've recommended patients to get counseling, and I definitely refer people out a lot to different kinds of doctors. If someone doesn't start getting better in a few sessions, I start looking for other alternatives, testing. Western medical testing, maybe a scan or blood chemistry testing, and start looking for other causes that maybe I can't find.
So if I wasn't responding to the treatments with my back,
right,
then that would have said to you there's some stress and tension that I just keep initiating the pain process with in some form or another.
Right.
And then that would have to have been explored in another fashion.
Yeah, we would have sent you for maybe an MRI or at least an X-ray. And then, if the stress was really bad, try some stress reduction protocols.
Meditation.
Definitely meditation.
What does, I think it was Swami Rama. Walked into a hospital one day and demonstrated that you can control respiration and heartbeat with meditation.
Right.
Is that the guide to what you guide people to?
No.
How do you initiate them? How do you get them to start practicing? What do you tell them their goals are?
I don't start off with the goal-oriented things. Maybe intention is very important. Their motivation, why they want to do this is real important. But relaxation, we don't want to try to get them somewhere, try to get them focused on, some place they need to get to. It's more about how can we just start to relax, right here. And so I like the concentration exercises of body awareness. There's one that was made popular by John Kabat-Zinn. And in the University of Massachusetts, they had a huge program on meditation that was based all about body awareness, the body scan, progressive relaxation, as Dr. Benson describes it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sort of 15-minute process of starting at the toes and working your way up through your body.
Right. And you just breathe naturally. There's no specific way to breathe in the meditation that I practice.
So let's go back to me for a second, and the options or the alternatives for the healing process. You were already aware that I meditated. You
Right.
demonstrated for me like 7 different stretches. Some of them were kind of yoga poses.
Right.
Others were just, I'm not sure if they were all yoga poses. Let's even back it up a second. Can you describe the differences as you see them between, let's say, yoga and Tai Chi?
Well, yoga is usually sort of a extended stretch, and there's what we just call therapeutic stretches. These were developed by Western MDs, physiotherapists, other kinds of Western trained people that, orthopedists, people that studied the anatomy and functional anatomy real intensively. And so, through their understanding of the body, they developed some of their own therapeutic stretches, which are different than yoga.
Okay.
And Tai Chi is really done as a standing series of movements. So it doesn't really hold much of a prolonged stretch.
Okay. Yet each one of the two, and even in meditation, the idea is to raise up in some form or other the life force, the chi.
Yeah, it does seem to all increase the life force in some way, definitely.
And most of them seem to slightly different than what you've been describing, and I don't know if we could discuss that, but
Yeah.
it seems like there's a belief that in both in any form of Tai Chi or any form of yoga, the idea is to raise the energy up again through the whole system. But it's basically centered at the base and it's stuck there unless we do something to bring it up.
There's definitely different ideas. I think there's definitely in all of it, I think I could safely say that the idea is to move the energy, to get the energy circulating, to get the blood circulating, to get the breath energy moving, and maybe open the mind. Mind opening seems to be pretty universal in healing. Being open-minded, trying new things, new ways of looking at things, new ways of relating to ourselves and other people. That is all, I think, part of a spiritual practice as well.
So the more that I connect to me on a deeper level, the spirit, the more I'm going to relieve the stresses that are adding to whatever the ailments are.
It might take on several stages of maybe, like in the 4 methodologies, right? Identifying pathogenic mind states, finding out that there's a cure for those mind states and applying the cure. You might follow that same methodology for emotion or spiritual dysfunction or...
Okay, but what Benson says and what seems like Oriental medicine is teaching is the body follows the mind.
I think we could add the mind follows the body too.
So the mind follows the body when the body is in some form of crisis?
No, you can just lead the mind through the body, or certain body awarenesses can help the mind. Certainly like meditating on your breath, and having just the awareness of the breath moving in your body or certain places in the breath and establishing a connection with that. And the breath can kind of be like an anchor for your meditation. It can help calm the mind.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. Time flies when we're having fun. I want to break away for a second. I got a couple announcements to make, and then we'll come back for some final thoughts. And one of the things I want to touch on is is there anything that Oriental medicine shouldn't be treating? Well, hold that thought.
Okay.
Okay, couple of announcements here. First off, our good friends up at Unity Santa Fe, which is 1212 Unity Way, which is the New Mexico 599 relief route, and the phone number is 989-4433. They have a monthly cinema, Unity Santa Fe Spiritual Cinema, and this month they're presenting Stairways to Heaven, The Practical Magic of Sacred Space. This film was created by Freddie Silva, author of Secrets in the Fields, presents ancient spiritual technology. With the appearance of crop circles, this information is again coming to light. Bonds between seen and unseen are brought into awareness. Features beautiful British Isle sites, and it's August 20th, so that's what? That's Friday. This Friday at 7 o'clock. There is a suggested love offering. We can't talk about money on the air, so give them a call at 989-4433, and they'll let you know what the offering is and tell you more about the movie. They've been flashing my contact information on the screen. They'll be rolling at the end. So I am a counselor. I am a minister. I combine the two of them in, I don't know how unique a form it is, but I really believe kind of what we've been talking about, that without a spiritual component, there is no real healing. So if you think I could be of any help to you, contact me. I work on a donation basis, so you might find something there that will help you deal with problems that you didn't think you could deal with or haven't been able to get help with from other places. Also, this is public access television. That means you, the public, have access to this, the television. If there's anything you'd like to have me address, any issues, any topics, any practices, send me an email, call me. Be happy to hear from you, discuss it with you. Maybe you want to be on a show yourself. You feel knowledgeable enough to discuss something. Love to have you. I am also looking for somebody to sit and do a show with me on Edgar Casey. It's an amazing town, Santa Fe. I am so hard to believe that nobody in this town, there's no Edgar Casey study groups or the Search for God study groups or any of that stuff. I don't understand that. But I'm looking for somebody who wants to talk about Casey, because Casey has had a profound influence on my life and the things I do, and would love to talk about him.
I know someone that would love to talk about Casey with you.
Way cool.
Oh, yeah.
We'll talk about that after the show. And the final announcement, next week we're going to have Merritt Bennett, who is an attorney here in town, and you're asking yourself the question, why is an attorney on a spiritual show? Because Merritt has written a book called Heart and the Law, and that would almost sound like a contradiction in terms, but it's not. He has a very spiritual approach to what the law is and how do you get connected to it and hooked up with it. So tune in next week for that show. And that's about the end of our announcements. So let's talk about, are there things that people shouldn't be coming to you with?
I think Chinese medicine could be and often is an adjunctive therapy. So people are being treated for something with someone else. They might need some stronger kind of treatment like chemotherapy. Some people are very opposed to chemotherapy.
I'd be one of them.
But it could be an adjunctive therapy. It could be an adjunctive to diet therapy. It could be an adjunct to, psychotherapy.
I'm going to put you on the spot.
Sounds good.
We've been talking about Oriental medicine, which really works with the body, with the life forces in the body, enhancing the life forces in the body through spiritual practices, or just practices, Tai Chi, yoga, meditation. You don't have to call them spiritual, if that offends anybody. how can we possibly heal the body by putting toxic chemicals and radiations into it?
Sometimes there are processes that are really out of balance. It's true that a lot of Western medicine, allopathic medicine, is poison, and it poisons certain enzymes in the body, like the statin drugs, which control cholesterol. They poison the enzyme that synthesizes cholesterol. Well, some people have a genetic predisposition to synthesizing cholesterol, and you can't really stop it very easily. Their cells are being told by their genes to make more cholesterol, and it can be very hard to stop. And most of those people have heart attacks. And if you don't get that covered, that's a heart attack waiting to happen. And contra of what you might hear, high blood pressure is not necessarily the only indicator of, say, a heart attack warning. You can have low blood pressure and have a heart attack.
Is that, okay, two separate factors when we don't have much time. Genetic and lifestyle.
Yeah.
So
that.
one we deal with one way, one we deal with another way. Would that be fair?
No, you can deal with genetic problems in alternative medicine as well. It just depends. Sometimes I think you need something stronger than I can provide. Or it might take a very long time for it to work.
Okay, we've got about 2 minutes left. Quick question again. Should people be coming to you for preventive diagnosis? I mean, just to look at them and say, okay, this is out of balance, we deal with this now, we won't have this down the road?
Yeah, we do that.
So that would prevent some of that stuff from getting to that crisis point where we have to use some drastic measures.
Definitely.
So that would make some sense. So it would be, to use anything preventatively as opposed to curatively is always easier.
Definitely. Before the pathogenic gets so strong, it's unmanageable.
And you can measure those fine distinctions.
Yeah, Chinese medicine can often see these things coming out early.
Wonderful. Any other thoughts? You got a minute you want to leave the audience with?
I would just encourage everybody to look into and pursue, whatever healing path sounds right to them. If you're interested in any kind of spiritual path, that you make the effort to take it on.
Doctor, thank you so much.
Thank you, Phil.
And you got through the whole show without calling me Dr. Phil.
I was working on that.
I know, you told me on the phone when you were on your way over here. Anyway, I want to put in a plug for Dr. Dave. Like I said, I've known him for years, and I think he's really a truly gifted healer. And you would be well served by making use of his services. So his information is being flashed on the screen. Jot it down, preventatively, curatively. When you'll know when you need help. Contact him. He's the man. I want to thank you for tuning in. This is about spirit. I believe you are spirit. Make use of it. Use it to keep yourself stable, healthy, and create a reality that works for you. So until next week, walk in love and light, everybody. I'm Reverend Phil, and I've been your host for Words of the Prophets. Thank you for tuning in. Please join me again next week, same time, same channel, for more Words of the Prophets.